Imagine boarding a peaceful commercial flight, but minutes later, the plane is hijacked, and the criminal vanishes into thin air with a fortune in cash, leaving no trace behind. This is the story of D.B. Cooper, the man who outsmarted the FBI and the system for over 50 years. No clues, no answers, just mystery. Want to know how he pulled it off? Stay until the end and uncover one of the greatest enigmas in American history. The hijacking of Flight 305. On November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving in the United States, a suave and mysterious man who identified himself as Dan Cooper purchased a one-way ticket at the Portland, Oregon airport. He chose Flight 305 of Northwest Orient Airlines, a Boeing 727 bound for Seattle, Washington. Nothing seemed unusual at first. He was dressed in a black suit, a thin tie, a white shirt, and a dark overcoat, giving the impression of an ordinary executive, perhaps someone traveling for business. Cooper paid for his ticket in cash, around $20, a modest amount for the time. At that time, airport security protocols were much more relaxed than today's. There were no metal detectors, thorough searches, or detailed identity checks. Anyone could buy a ticket, board, and travel with relative ease. Upon boarding the flight with 36 other passengers, Cooper took his seat in row 18C near the rear of the aircraft. He ordered a drink, bourbon and soda, and calmly waited for the plane to take off. Until that moment, there were no indications of what was to come. He was polite and calm, showing no suspicious behavior. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a small note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. Initially, she thought it was just another passenger trying to give her a phone number, and tucked the note away without reading it. However, Cooper discreetly called her over and whispered, "Miss, you'd better take a look at that note. I have a bomb." Upon opening the note, Schaffner read a simple and straightforward message. Cooper claimed he was carrying a bomb and demanded that she sit next to him. Nervous but maintaining her composure, the flight attendant complied and discreetly asked Cooper if he really had a bomb. He opened his briefcase to reveal what appeared to be explosives, a set of wires and red cylinders. From that moment on, Cooper laid out his demands. He wanted $200,000 in 20 bills, along with 4 parachutes and a fuel truck to refuel the aircraft upon landing in Seattle. The instructions were clear. No tricks, otherwise he would blow up the plane. Schaffner, frightened, relayed the message to the cockpit, and the pilot immediately followed the protocol for hijacking situations, contacting the Seattle Control Tower and federal authorities. Meanwhile, Cooper remained calm and continued to drink his beverage. He seemed to be in complete control of the situation, acting with impressive coolness. For the other passengers, the flight seemed to be proceeding normally, unaware that they were in the midst of one of the most audacious crimes in American history. This was just the first part of the meticulously orchestrated plan by D.B. Cooper, and he was just getting started. The exchange and the release of hostages. As the Boeing 727 continued its route to Seattle, the FBI and Northwest Orient Airlines authorities quickly mobilized. The priority was to meet D.B. Cooper's demands, ensure the safety of the passengers, and avoid any risk of explosion. Meanwhile, Cooper remained calm, engaging in polite conversation with the crew and maintaining a controlled demeanor. As the plane approached Seattle, authorities managed to gather the requested amount. The $200,000 in 20 bills was packed into bundles for easy transport. They made sure the bills were not sequential, but each was photographed for tracking later, should they be used. In addition to the money, the 4 parachutes that Cooper had requested were also delivered. Curiously, he demanded extra parachutes, which confused authorities. Some speculated that he might be planning to force a crew member to jump with him, or perhaps wanted to mislead authorities into thinking he wouldn't be escaping alone. The plane landed in Seattle around 5:45 p.m., with the runway cordoned off and surrounded by authorities. Not intimidated by the tense scenario, Cooper ordered that only one person bring the money and the parachutes. The packages were handed over by Northwest employees, following all the hijackers' instructions. With the money and parachutes in hand, Cooper released the 36 passengers, keeping his word without causing harm. They exited the plane unaware that they had just gone through one of the largest hijackings in history. Only the crew, the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and one flight attendant, remained on board, as Cooper still needed them for the second part of his audacious plan. As the plane was being refueled, Cooper explained to the pilot his new commands. He wanted the plane to take off again, this time heading for Mexico. He specified the exact route that should be followed, stating that the plane should maintain a low altitude of 10,000 feet and that the landing gear should remain down. He also ordered that the cabin remain unpressurized and that the rear door, along with the access ladder, be unlocked during the flight. D.B. Cooper's escape plan was in motion, and the next step would be something never seen before in an aircraft hijacking. The mysterious jump. With the plane ready to take off again, D.B. Cooper gave his final instructions to the crew. He wanted to head to Mexico, but with some unusual details. The altitude should be kept at 10,000 feet, the landing gear would remain down, and the plane should maintain a low speed of around 200 knots. Moreover, the strangest request was for the rear ladder to be lowered during the flight, something never attempted before on a commercial aircraft. Pilot William Scott explained that it would be impossible to fly directly to Mexico without refueling again. Cooper then suggested that the plane make a technical stop in Reno, Nevada to refuel before continuing to the final destination. With this new plan, the plane took off from Seattle around 7:40 p.m. under adverse weather conditions, with rain and strong winds. On board, Cooper maintained his calm and controlled demeanor. Shortly after takeoff, he instructed the crew to lock themselves in the cockpit, ensuring that no one would interfere with his next move. With the crew following his orders, Cooper began to prepare his final plan. Just before 8 p.m., while the plane flew over southwestern Washington, Cooper put on one of the parachutes, strapped the money bag to his body, and then lowered the rear staircase. In a daring and risky maneuver, he jumped into the darkness, amid a storm, completely disappearing into the night. The crew, unsure of what had happened, only realized the ladder had been lowered when they felt a change in cabin pressure. They weren't certain if Cooper had jumped yet. The plane continued its course to Reno, landing around 10:15 p.m. Upon inspecting the aircraft, authorities confirmed that Cooper had indeed vanished, taking with him the $200,000. That jump, made at a dangerous altitude and in severe weather conditions, cemented D.B. Cooper as a legend. From that moment on, he became the only hijacker in U.S. history to escape without a trace. The inconclusive investigation. As soon as D.B. Cooper jumped from the plane, one of the largest air and ground manhunts in U.S. history began. The FBI, along with local police and the military, launched a massive operation to try to locate the hijacker. Helicopters and planes swept the southwest Washington area, where it was believed he might have landed, while ground teams searched for any sign of Cooper or the money. But difficulties arose immediately. The weather conditions on the night of the jump were extremely adverse. Strong winds, heavy rain, and darkness made the search almost impossible. Additionally, the exact location where Cooper might have landed remained a mystery. He jumped from an altitude of 10,000 feet in a mountainous and densely forested environment without any specialized navigation equipment other than the parachute and the money bag. The vastness of the search area, covering thousands of square miles of forests, rivers, and rugged terrain, further complicated authorities' efforts. The FBI, which nicknamed the case NORJAC, short for Northwest Hijacking, spent weeks analyzing the area and interviewing any possible witnesses, but to no avail. No definitive clues were found. Several theories emerged. Cooper might have injured himself or died in the fall, as jumping from a moving aircraft in such conditions was extremely dangerous, even for an experienced skydiver. Other theories suggested he might have been a former military member with parachuting training, which would explain his success. However, no conclusive evidence appeared. The FBI also examined the $200,000 that Cooper had taken. All the bills had been carefully recorded and photographed. Authorities monitored banks, commercial establishments, and tried to track any transactions involving these bills, but for a long time, none of them reappeared. the lack of concrete evidence led to a deadlock in the investigations. Cooper seemed to have completely vanished, and despite all efforts, the hijacker's identity and fate remained one of the greatest criminal mysteries in the U.S. Conspiracy theories. Despite the extensive investigative efforts, D.B. Cooper remained a ghost, and over time, the mystery only grew. Without concrete evidence of his fate, various conspiracy theories began to emerge, fueling public imagination. One of the most popular theories suggests that Cooper did not survive the jump. Many skydiving experts argue that, due to the adverse weather conditions and the altitude from which he jumped, it is unlikely he was able to land safely. Some believe he may have died in the fall or sustained serious injuries, rendering him unable to move or seek help. Another theory speculates that Cooper had deep knowledge of skydiving and planning. Some theorists suggest he could have been a former military member, possessing advanced training in jumping and survival. This idea is supported by the meticulous way he planned the hijacking and escape. However, this theory raises the question: if he was so experienced, why didn't he take an escape vehicle or leave a trail that could be followed? There are also those who believe that D.B. Cooper might have disguised himself and lived a normal life after the hijacking. This theory is bolstered by the fact that after the crime, numerous people over the years claimed to have seen Cooper or asserted that he was a relative or acquaintance. However, none of these claims were confirmed. In 1980, a boy playing on the banks of the Columbia River found a package of money that contained a series of bills identical to those Cooper had requested. The notes were dated from 1969, and the money was identified as part of the sum that Cooper had stolen. Despite this discovery, there were no leads that led to the identification of Cooper or his whereabouts. Investigations continued, but the case was never officially solved. The legacy of D.B. Cooper. The case of D.B. Cooper remains one of the greatest mysteries in American aviation, sparking a wealth of literature, documentaries, and even films. Over the years, the story has captured the public's imagination, inspiring amateur sleuths, conspiracy theorists, and crime enthusiasts alike. Despite the FBI officially closing the case in 2016, many people continue to speculate about Cooper's fate, identity, and the possibility that he may still be alive. Each year, new theories and claims emerge, fueling ongoing interest in the case. Cooper's audacious crime and disappearance have left an indelible mark on American culture, inspiring everything from books to television shows. He became an anti-hero of sorts, symbolizing the ultimate thrill-seeker who defied the system and eluded capture. Ultimately, the story of D.B. Cooper is not just about a daring hijacking. It embodies the intrigue of the unknown and the allure of unsolved mysteries. As long as questions remain unanswered, the legend of D.B. Cooper will continue to fascinate generations to come. Another theory speculates that Cooper had a deep knowledge of parachuting and planning. Some theorists suggest that he could have been a former military man, possessing advanced training in jumping and survival. This idea is supported by the meticulous way he planned the hijacking and his escape. However, this theory raises the question: if he was so experienced, why didn't he have a getaway vehicle or leave a trace that could be followed? There are still those who believe that D.B. Cooper may have disguised himself and lived a normal life after the hijacking. This theory is reinforced by the fact that, after the crime, many people over the years have claimed to have seen Cooper or asserted that he was a relative or acquaintance. None of these allegations, however, have been confirmed. In 1980, a boy playing on the banks of the Columbia River found a bundle of money containing a series of notes identical to those Cooper had requested. The bills were dated 1969, and the money was identified as part of the sum Cooper had stolen. Despite this discovery, no leads were found that led to Cooper's identification or whereabouts. The investigations continued, but the case was never officially solved. The investigations. The D.B. Cooper case garnered national attention and became a significant investigation for the FBI. Over the years, the agency followed numerous leads, interviewing thousands of witnesses and potential suspects. They analyzed the parachute used, the flight path, and the notes Cooper left behind. One notable piece of evidence was the composite sketch created from witness descriptions of Cooper. This sketch was circulated widely, yet no one was ever definitively identified as the hijacker. The FBI even looked into various individuals who claimed to be Cooper, but none provided sufficient evidence to warrant further investigation. In 2016, the FBI announced it would be closing the case due to a lack of new leads and the passage of time. However, they encouraged the public to keep the mystery alive, as many still feel there is more to discover. The case of D.B. Cooper has continued to inspire amateur detectives and enthusiasts. Various groups have come together to analyze evidence, piece together timelines, and develop theories about Cooper's true identity and fate. Modern-day investigations. In recent years, the story of D.B. Cooper has seen a resurgence in interest, thanks in part to new technologies and social media platforms. Online forums and social media groups have sprung up, allowing people to share theories and evidence in real time. New advancements in forensic science have led some to revisit the case with fresh eyes. DNA analysis, for instance, is a tool that some hope can finally provide answers. While the FBI collected evidence during their investigation, the technology available at the time was limited. With today's capabilities, some believe it might be possible to extract DNA from items left behind. Moreover, the allure of the D.B. Cooper case has inspired a new wave of content, including podcasts, documentaries, and even fictional retellings. These modern interpretations often explore the psychological aspects of Cooper's actions, as well as the impact of his crime on the victims and the families of those involved. As long as there are questions left unanswered, the legacy of D.B. Cooper will continue to intrigue and inspire curiosity. The case remains a symbol of mystery and adventure, embodying the spirit of those who dare to challenge the status quo.